Shit. Oh my gosh. That one just aged me, but we're getting better. Shoot, good win. Win's a win.
You're shooting 80% from three-point range while your teammates are bricking every single shot they take, going a collective 0 for 17 from beyond the arc. You're standing wide open in the corner, money in the bank, ready to put the game away, and yet the ball never finds you. Instead, you watch in absolute disbelief as your teammates continue launching terrible shots, nearly costing your team a crucial victory. This isn't some rec league nightmare. This is exactly what happened to Sophie Cunningham in what should have been a celebration of the Indiana Fever's historic 5th straight win. But instead of popping champagne, Cunningham dropped a bombshell that has the entire WNBA talking, and even Caitlin Clark couldn't believe what she was witnessing from the sidelines. The Indiana Fever had just accomplished something that seemed absolutely impossible just a few months ago. 5 straight victories. 5 consecutive games where everything seemed to be clicking, where the team that was once the laughingstock of the league was suddenly climbing the standings faster than anyone could have predicted. The energy was electric, the momentum was building, and playoff dreams were becoming playoff realities. But behind all that celebration, behind all those highlight reels and feel-good stories, a storm was brewing that would expose some ugly truths about team chemistry, basketball intelligence, and what happens when ego takes priority over winning. Sophie Cunningham wasn't just having a good game against the Seattle Storm. She was having the kind of performance that legends are made of.
It's been a lot of ups and downs in the WNBA this season. To take care of business in a winning streak like this, what does that sort of say about how this team is coming together?
Yeah, you know, Seattle's a great team, a great team, and it's hard to play here. And so we knew that. We knew that they just came off kind of a bad loss against LA. And so they were hungry for a win. But for us, it's not about other teams. It's about our standard. It's about stacking the days. And I think that where our mental's at as a team and as individuals, we're in a really good spot. And, you know, it's not going to be easy moving forward. But I think today we stayed true to the scout. We trusted the offense. Kelsey has been having a hell of a season. She was a little bit off, but she facilitated for us offensively down the stretch. And it just shows that everyone has something to give, even if your scoring's not going to be.
Out of 5 attempts from three-point range. 80% shooting from beyond the arc. When you're a professional basketball player and you're shooting at that level, there's an unwritten rule in basketball that every single person who's ever touched a basketball understands. You feed the hot hand. You run every single play through that person until they start missing. It's basketball 101, the kind of fundamental principle they teach in middle school. But here's where the story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. While Sophie was out there shooting like she was in a video game with cheat codes activated, the rest of her teammates were putting together one of the most collectively awful shooting performances you'll ever see at the professional level. 0 for 17. Not 1, not 2, not even a lucky bounce that somehow found its way in. 0 makes out of 17 attempts from three-point range. The mathematical improbability of this happening is staggering, but what's even more staggering is what happened next. The Fever beat Seattle 78-74, but this should have been a 20-point blowout. Instead, it turned into a nail-biting, heart attack-inducing finish that had everyone on the edge of
survived that. I think it was an 11-0 run by Seattle in the final 5 minutes. Just kind of how gutsy was that to pull that out?
It was very gutsy, you know. Every win ain't gonna be pretty. So I'm happy that we kept our composure even though Seattle went on an 11-0 run. We've been through situations like that, but at the end of the day we just stayed together and we talked about it and we moved on to the next play.
I also think it shows the growth that we've had as a team, because early in the season we were just so inconsistent, and if teams were to do that, we would normally lose those games, but it just shows that we're getting closer, we're trusting each other, and we're just, I think that's the biggest part, is trusting and knowing that we can win.
Their seats for all the wrong reasons. The game became a nail-biter not because of great defensive adjustments or incredible shot-making by the opposition, but because of some of the most baffling decision-making you'll ever witness in professional basketball. Here's the part that had Sophie Cunningham ready to lose her mind, and rightfully so. Somewhere in the third quarter, despite her shooting exhibition, despite her perfect rhythm, despite the fact that she was literally automatic from three-point range, her teammates stopped passing her the ball. Read that again. They stopped passing the ball to the players shooting 80% from 3. Instead, they decided to keep feeding players who couldn't hit the broad side of a barn if they were standing right next to it. The main culprit in this basketball tragedy? Kelsey Mitchell. Now, Mitchell is a talented player who's had a phenomenal season, but on this particular night, she was having the kind of performance that makes you want to look away. 3 makes out of 16 attempts from the field. 0 makes out of 8 attempts from three-point range. She played 29 minutes of basketball and didn't make a single three-pointer. Yet somehow she kept getting the green light to keep shooting while Sophie Cunningham was standing in the corner, probably wondering if she was living in some kind of alternate reality. The psychological torture that Sophie must have been experiencing is almost unimaginable. Picture being a professional athlete, performing at an elite level, knowing you have the hot hand, knowing you can help your team win, and watching your teammates make terrible decision after terrible decision. Every missed shot by Mitchell was another dagger, another moment where Sophie had to be thinking, why isn't the ball coming to me? What makes this situation even more infuriating is the timing. This wasn't some meaningless regular season game where you can afford to let players work through their struggles. This was a crucial victory in their quest for playoff positioning, where every single possession mattered, where every decision could be the difference between making the playoffs and watching from home. The coaching staff deserves massive criticism for allowing this basketball malpractice to continue. How do you watch Kelsey Mitchell go 0 for 8 from 3 and keep her in the game for 29 minutes? How do you watch Sophie Cunningham shooting 80% from 3 and not run every single offensive set through her? Coach Stephanie White nearly coached her team out of a victory with some of the most questionable game management decisions you'll ever see at the professional level. But here's where it gets even worse. The team wasn't just ignoring Sophie's hot shooting. They were actively making the wrong basketball plays. Players were taking contested three-pointers with 15 seconds left on the shot clock instead of moving the ball to find the open shooter who was money all night long. They were playing selfish basketball instead of winning basketball, prioritizing individual statistics over team success. The timeline of this disaster tells the complete story. Sophie established herself as the go-to option from 3 early in the game, making shot after shot and building the rhythm that every shooter dreams of. But as the game progressed, as her teammates continued to struggle, instead of recognizing the obvious and adjusting their approach, they doubled down on their mistakes. They kept running the same plays for players who clearly didn't have it that night. This isn't just about one game or one poor shooting performance. This exposes a fundamental flaw in how the Fever approach basketball as a team. They don't seem to have a clear hierarchy when it comes to shot selection and ball distribution. Championship-level teams have systems in place that automatically get the ball to the hot shooter. The Fever appeared to be operating on individual decision-making rather than collective basketball intelligence. The veteran leadership aspect of this situation makes it even more problematic. Sophie Cunningham isn't some rookie who doesn't understand her role. She's a seasoned professional who's been around the league long enough to know winning basketball when she sees it, and she definitely knows when she's getting a raw deal. She came to Indiana to compete for championships, not to watch teammates take bad shots while she stands wide open in the corner. What happened in Seattle almost cost them the game entirely. The Storm went on an 11-0 run in the fourth quarter and nearly stole a victory that should have been put away much earlier. If the Fever had lost this game because of poor shot selection and ball movement, it would have been one of the most frustrating and preventable losses of the entire season. The statistical evidence is so overwhelming that it borders on comedy. When you have one player shooting 80% from 3 and the rest of your team shooting 0% from 3, the basketball decision should be automatic. There should be no debate, no discussion, no hesitation. Every possession should run through the player who's shooting lights out until she starts missing. Sophie's frustration became even more justified when you consider her season-long consistency. This wasn't a case of a role player getting lucky for one game. Sophie has been the most reliable three-point shooter on the team all season long. She's a proven commodity who deserves the ball when she's in that kind of zone. The lack of communication and basketball awareness displayed by her teammates was stunning. Any competent basketball team would have recognized what was happening and made the necessary adjustments immediately. But instead of adapting to what the game was giving them, They stubbornly stuck to their original game plan despite overwhelming evidence that it wasn't working. The impact on team chemistry could be significant if this situation isn't addressed properly. Sophie Cunningham isn't the type of player who's going to quietly accept poor basketball decisions. She's vocal, she's competitive, and she expects her teammates to make winning plays. When they don't live up to those standards, she's going to let them know about it, and rightfully so. This incident also highlights the difference between good teams and championship teams. Good teams might win games despite making poor decisions. Championship teams win because they consistently make the right decisions, especially in crucial moments. The Fever showed they still have significant growth ahead of them if they want to be taken seriously as legitimate playoff contenders. The margin for error gets smaller as the competition gets tougher. What might work against weaker opponents in the regular season won't fly when facing elite teams in high-pressure playoff situations. If the Fever can't make proper basketball decisions when they're winning games during a hot streak, what's going to happen when they face tougher competition with everything on the line? Sophie Cunningham's professionalism throughout this entire situation has been remarkable. Despite her obvious frustration with the lack of ball movement and recognition, she continued to play hard on defense and make the right plays whenever she did get opportunities. That's the mark of a true veteran who puts team success above personal feelings. The broader implications of this game extend far beyond one night in Seattle. This exposed fundamental issues with the team's basketball philosophy and decision-making process that need to be addressed immediately. Championship teams don't almost blow games because of poor shot selection and ball movement. They execute the basics consistently and make adjustments when the situation demands it. Sophie Cunningham just exposed a major problem with the Fever's basketball intelligence, and her frustration is completely justified. When someone shoots 80% from three, while everyone else goes 0 for 17, the ball movement decisions should be automatic. The team better learn from this experience before it costs them much bigger games, because championship opportunities don't come around every season, and wasting them on preventable mistakes is simply unacceptable.